Sorry, my voice is a little bit weird today. We're going to talk about 7C, chapter 7C, the middle portion, well, the second half. Anyway, the part about three variable Venn diagrams. And just like with the truth tables, this is another step, a little more complication, but it's not hard. It's just a matter of looking at things differently, which I guess can be hard for a lot of folks. When we're looking at three variable Venn diagrams, we're going to keep in mind our four standard statements, and we're going to make sure that we remember this is what they look like, this is what we call them, this is how we translate them, all that. So I'm going to leave this up here so you can we can use it during the next little bit here to look at when we're looking at our multiple statements. What we're going to talk about today is categorical syllogisms, okay? And y'all know a syllogism is just a three-statement argument, two premises and a conclusion. In this way, it's three categorical statements okay? So we have two premises, a major premise and a minor premise, and then a conclusion. Now, Dr. Vaughn spends a couple pages explaining how the major and minor and middle work. And I'm going to give you that vocabulary, but I'm not as worried about that as I am about how you're going to use this information to figure out whether something is valid or invalid, whether a categorical syllogism is a valid argument or an invalid argument, just like we do with truth tables. The whole point is to find out, does our argument work, okay? So when I'm looking at my categorical statements, they're going to be a series of these guys, okay, my A, E, I, O. And so when I'm looking at these, okay, my major premise is going to have what we call our major term. You know this by P. And a middle term, okay? The middle term only gets used in the premises, never shows up in the conclusion, which means we're going to have to do this a little bit differently than we've been doing with the truth tables. The major premise has a major term and a middle term, and the middle term is just M. Isn't it nice that these guys actually have designations? The minor premise is the middle term, ideally, middle term, and then just your M again, and then the minor term, which is your S, okay? And then our conclusion is one of those, okay? It's our minor term, minor term, our S, and our major term. Major, okay? So PM is our major term, MS is our minor term, S and P is our conclusion. Not all arguments show up this way. Be careful to look for the indicator words for premises and conclusions. Look at page 13, yes, way back in chapter 1, for that list, okay? Some of the homework assignments, some of the homework problems are not in the right order. In English, we do that a lot. We start with our ending and then work backwards to it. So make sure you're looking at those, okay? So if I'm looking at a major term, a minor term, and a conclusion, okay? Say it looks like this. Say I have all P are M, some M are S. So, therefore, consequently, so some S are not P. That's my argument. I've translated it out. Here's what it looks like. Okay, well, I have some letters in there I'm not used to. Got some M's in there. I've got P in the front, all of that. So I have to look at my bubbles just a little bit differently, okay? Now, it's helpful for some folks to say, okay, I've got an all sentence, so this is an A, okay? It looks like this. P, M. Make sure you're keeping them in the same order here when you're looking at them that way. that'll help you a lot when you're trying to graph these on our 3s, okay? Now, this is a good step, okay? Do this, get comfortable with it, and then let it go, okay? Maybe we don't get to the let it go part yet, but that's okay. Sum M or S, okay? That's an I statement. And I statements always look like this, but my first one is an M and my second one is an S. Okay, now does it matter which side I put my M and S on for an I statement? No, not really, but we're going to stick together there. My conclusion then, sum S are not P, is going to look like my O statement, okay? Now, knowing which kind of statement we have, knowing what it looks like, okay? These are good steps to kind of get things moving. Now, if I'm looking at this, okay, but I need to find out, do I have a valid argument? I can't really tell from my 3 sets of bubbles over there. They're not useful that way. They're just going to show me what it should look like. So now I'm going to put things, I'm going to draw this big so you can really see the difference here. Okay, overlap. Make sure your M overlaps, so you have this little triangle and then 3 sort of eyeball sections overlapping. Okay, this is where all 3 meet. Okay, so this is my S and P, just like normal. My extra bubble is my middle term, so there's my M. Okay, so far so good. So, and I'm going to use different colors to plot these so you can see the difference. Okay, my A statement is all P are M. Okay, so when I'm drawing this, I have to ignore totally my S bubble. I have to pretend this line isn't in the way. Okay, so I'm only looking at M and P. I'm forgetting that my S even exists. Okay, so all P are M. Over here, I see I'm coloring in that whole side of the P that doesn't include M. So I'm going to start here, and I'm coloring in all of that. Okay? That's what my A statement looks like when my variables are P and M. Okay? The other one, okay, this little green guy here, my apologies to those who can't see colors like everybody else does. I'm going to make it a little bit different here. So, sum MRS, I'm going to just look at these two. I'm going to look at M, and I'm going to look at S. Okay? I'm going to ignore all mess over there in the P statement. Sum M or S. I have to put an X somewhere in that eyeball section. Okay? I'm choosing to put mine there. And I'm done. We only graph the premises. Only. Never put your conclusion on the actual graph. How we decide whether this argument is valid or invalid is whether I can say, okay, so if I can say, that's 2 different words, not 1 word, whatever the conclusion is. When I look at the graph, then it's valid. Okay? So, my conclusion is an O statement. That means somewhere in my S, sorry, I didn't label that. Somewhere in my S there has to be an X that's outside the S and P eyeball section. Well, I have that. It's up here, it's a little high, but that's okay. So this is a valid argument. Okay, but I have choices, right? If I can't say, oops, I always end up with very multiple fingers. If I can't say the conclusion by looking at my graph, then it's invalid. Okay, so perhaps when I'm doing this, I'm going to erase that. perhaps when I was doing this, I put my x on this line here. I can do that. Well, can I really say that my x is in the right spot for an O statement? Well, it has to be outside of this eyeball section. It's on the line. So I have to say that is invalid. Okay? It would also be invalid if I put my x in the middle of the little triangle part there, right? Anything that is not outside of this eyeball section in this particular argument makes it invalid, okay? So make sure when you're doing these in the homework or on the test that you're looking at these and you're looking at exactly where they fit. Where did you draw your X? Go with what you've drawn. Don't worry about other interpretations of the argument, okay? From what you've drawn, it's valid or invalid, okay? In this particular argument, it depends on where you put your X. Okay, if it's out here, if I put it out here in the clear, which most of us like to do, it's very clear X, it's valid. If I put it on the line, or if I put it in the little triangle section, it's invalid. So keep that in mind as we go along. I know, one more thing to mess around with. Okay, so we're going to do a couple more. And you can come back to this and kind of look at and see things, but I want to kind of give you some practice. So I'm going to make this stuff go away. You can always back up and look at it again. Okay. So if I have, let's show you another set of this. If I have an argument, some veggies are not broccoli. I like broccoli. Lots of people don't. Okay. All broccoli are green. So some veggies are green. That's my argument. Most of these are kind of silly, but it's okay. There are a couple things I need to do in order to get this into the right status, to get it into one of my pieces here. I kind of know some X's are not X's, okay? So I'm looking here, and I'm going to start with my conclusion. Okay, so start here, because I want my S and P to end up on the bottom. So I have some veggies, that's my S. Anywhere else veggies show up is an S. Here's green plants. Okay, green is an adjective, not a noun. So I have to give it a noun to hang on, and that's okay. So some veggies are green plants. That's my P. So up here, again, add plants, make that a P. So my middle term then is broccoli. Now, if you're following what Dr. Vaughn wants you to do in a couple of the pieces, you're going to say, okay, this is my minor premise. This is my major premise. The one that has the S in it is your minor premise. The one that has the P in it is your major premise. Okay, and the conclusion is always marked, so therefore, consequently, okay, it follows that. Here's my mess. So now I'm going to translate. Some S are not M. Be careful of your knots. All M are P. So some S are P. Now, one of the good pieces of advice Dr. Vaughn gives us is anytime you have a universal, graph it first. Okay? Then you can mark over top of it if you need to put an X in. So I'm going to make my section here. I'm going to go boom, 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 boom. Now, it always looks like that. Well, maybe not quite so lopsided. Here, if I'm looking at my types, okay, some S are not M. That's an O statement. S, M, out here. all MRP, that's an A statement. MP. So some SRP, that's an I statement. In the middle. Okay? So I have my little cheat sheet there, and I can put things together. So if I'm graphing my universal first, my all M or P, I'm going to look at just my M, just my P. And so my M gets colored in like this, okay? Don't forget this little spot here. We're not looking at the S right now, okay? So it has to look like that. And then some S are not M. Okay, so now I'm just looking at S's and M's here, okay? Some S that's not an M, so it can't be in the eyeball section. It can be anywhere in this whole place that I want. Well, I'm going to put my X right there on the line, okay? So I'm done graphing. I should have, can I say from this diagram, some SRP? Well, my X needs to be firmly in this eyeball section. I have it on the line, okay? So this is an invalid. If you put your X out here, you're invalid. If you decided to put your X in the middle here, you would have a valid argument. So it depends upon where you put your X, okay? Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't always depend on where you put your X. Sometimes you can't put your X anywhere where it will actually work to be a valid argument, okay? So there's that one. Kind of looking at my time here. Okay, we're still good. I want to do one more. That's all universal, so you can kind of see things. If you're not quite done with that part, you can always pause me and back up and try again there. It's okay. Okay, so if I have an argument like this, all S are M, no M are P, so no S are P. All three of my categorical statements are universals. Okay, it's a lot of coloring. So we're going to do I don't know which one I get better. The last one is always the weird shape for me anyway. Okay, so I have all S are M. So all of my S's are crowded into the little eyeball section here. So I have to color in that whole big section. No M or P. Okay? So my M's are staying by themselves, and so this middle ring is empty. It's dark in there. So if I'm going to have a no SRP, no SRP looks like this. That middle portion has to be totally empty. And that's what I have here. I have a lot of other stuff. Okay? So if I say no SRP, doesn't matter how empty this is over here. This is empty. Okay? So this is a valid argument. Even though it has a lot more going on in there than just what I have in my conclusion. Can I say from this drawing no SRP? Well, yeah, I can say that. This is my E statement. It looks like this. My middle section's empty. So be careful when you're looking at stuff. Don't get distracted by the extraneous stuff. Just remember, you have to be able to say from the diagram we have whether or not the conclusion is true. Okay, can I say what the conclusion is here? Can I say no SRP? Well, yeah, I can. So it's a valid argument. Okay, and that's just the easiest way to walk through that. We have one more section of Chapter 7. You have some homework, different numbers from the homework for different semesters, but let me know if you have trouble. Practice, make a good stab. Again, when you're doing the homework, the best thing to do honestly, is to either draw it in Office, in Word. Don't use Microsoft's Venn diagram creator. It's a mess when it comes to coming across Blackboard, and it doesn't always let you do what you need to do. Putting an X in the middle is really hard. You can do that with the Paint, put it in 2D. You can do that, just draw it by hand and then save it as a picture, a JPEG, JPG, and then import that into your document, okay? Basically, put your cursor in a spot and then say insert picture, and it'll prompt you to search on your computer, pop it in there, and it'll put it right in. It looks exactly the same on my side as it does on your side when you do it that way. So try to figure it out that way. Otherwise, just draw it by hand, take a picture, do the same thing, or send it to me via email, or drop it off by the office. Okay. So, happy day. Let me know if you have questions.